En estos días pasados, el primer día yo
In these
asistí a una primera
past few
jornada en la
days,
cual será muy
I also
crítico con
attended
la
another
situación de la
conference
educación
that was
musical
highly
en
critical
España.
to the level of
Antonio
musical
Muñoz
education in
Molina hablaba
Spain.
de éxodo de músicos,
Yesterday,
de que la
Antonio
educación
Muñoz
musical había sido
Molina
abandonada.
was talking about the
Es
flight of
cierto
musicians
bueno,
abroad.
vamos bastante con retraso respecto
And it
a
is
otros
true
países,
that
pero sí
perhaps
es
we're
verdad
not as
que
forward
la
as
situación yo
many
creo que ha
other
cambiado y
countries.
muy
It is
favorablemente.
also true,
No solo en la
however, that the
creación de orquestas
situation may have
sinfónicas, sino
changed
también en la
favorably, not
creación de
only in the
centros de
creation of
enseñanza
symphony orchestras, but
musical
also in the
que
creation of
hoy por hoy
music
son competitivos a
schools
nivel europeo.
that
Musiquene es uno de
are
ellos.
highly competitive within Europe, and Music is one of them.
Musiquene es el Centro Superior de Música del
Musiquene
País
is
Vasco,
the
como ha
higher
comentado esta mañana
musical
Miquel
education center
Cañada,
from the
es una
Basque
comunidad
Country, and as
pequeña
Miquel
de
Cañada
unos
said
2
this
millones
morning, it's a
de
small
habitantes.
community, only 2.2 million
Nuestro centro se
inhabitants.
creó en 2001,
Our center was
2002
created
para
in
dar una
'01
enseñanza de
or
calidad
'02
que
to
intentara
provide
garantizar la
quality musical
cualificación
education
profesional en todos los
and
ámbitos, como decía yo, de
professional training
interpretación,
in
tanto de
all
todos los
areas
instrumentos
of
clásicos como el jazz,
performance for
la
all
pedagogía
classic
y la
and
dirección de
jazz
orquesta y la
music
composición.
instruments,
El
conduction and
objetivo
composition.
principal del centro ha
The
sido desde el
main
principio
objective of the
proporcionar al
center from
alumnado
its very inception
un
has
bagaje
been
formativo lo
providing students with a
suficientemente
solid
importante
enough
como para
background
garantizarle una
to
futura inserción en el mundo
guarantee
laboral.
their
Y es
future
lo que desde luego
possibilities in
se ha
the labor
intentado en los
market,
11 años de vida que
which
lleva este centro
has been our
funcionando.
main goal in the
Precisamente
11
por
years
eso
during
el
which we
plan de
have been
estudios
working. For
que hoy
that
en día lleva
precise
Musiquene,
reason,
que sigue
our
funcionando con un plan
curriculum,
LOE en 3
which
cursos
continues
y
to
bueno,
work in
ya
3
está con el plan nuevo, con el plan LOE hasta tercer
different
curso. Tenemos todavía
courses.
alumnos de cuarto curso
Well,
que
we
están
still
con el plan
have
antiguo, que se
students
jubilan
from
ya este
the
curso.
old
Ha
pensum,
sido
the
no
old
solo dar
curriculum,
una adecuada
but those will
formación
graduate this year. So our
como
aim has been not
intérpretes,
only
como directores de orquesta,
teaching
como compositores,
performers,
sino intentar
conductors,
también
or
formarles en
composers,
otros
but
ámbitos de
also
una posible vida
teaching them about
profesional,
other
de otras
aspects of a
profesiones
possible
ligadas a la música
professional
para las que
career
quizá
linked
no hemos
to
pensado desde
music,
los ámbitos de
but
la educación, ¿no?
perhaps overlooked
Intentar, pues
in the
bueno, todas esas
past.
profesiones, algunas de ellas las apuntaba
All
también
of
esta mañana
these
Miquel
career
Cañada, ¿no?
possibilities, well, some of them were
El
mentioned by
haber
Miguel
en un
Cañadas this
momento
morning.
dado
For instance, the
profesionales en las
possibility
orquestas que
that we
sean
could have
calentadores,
professionals in
que en vez
our
de servir de
orchestras
puente
that
con
could act
colectivos activo,
as
social o de cualquier
drivers
tipo,
or
pero
encouragers
también,
of
¿por qué no?,
social
introduciendo
programs,
este tipo de
or
música, pues
why
formar críticos
not
de música, formar
training
técnicos de sonido,
music critics,
formar comunicadores,
audio
divulgadores de música,
technicians,
etcétera, etcétera.
communicators,
Pero bueno, hoy estamos en
music
el foro que
disseminators,
estamos, que es
etc.
el de las orquestas
But
sinfónicas,
since we're
y
gathered
voy a
here in a
intentar
forum of
concretar mi
symphony
intervención
orchestras,
en
I
todo lo
will try
relacionado con la
to
práctica orquestal que lleva
specifically
a cabo
address
Musiquene. Volviendo un
our orchestra
poco a
practice
citarles,
in Music.
pues bueno, algunos aspectos de nuestro centro.
Just to mention a
A día
few
de hoy
aspects
contamos
of
con
our learning center.
322
Today,
alumnos,
we have 322 students,
164 profesores
164
y para que se hagan una
professors,
idea, el
and just to give you
40%
an
de nuestros
idea,
alumnos son de la
40%
comunidad
of our
autónoma
students
vasca
belong
y
to
de
the
Navarra,
Basque
un
community and
55%
Navarre.
son de otras comunidades
55% come
y
from
un
other
5% alumnos
regions
son
in Spain,
extranjeros. Y apunto
and a
esto
small
porque
percentage,
creo que este es un dato muy
5%,
importante
are foreign
cara
students.
a esa
And I'm
situación
pointing this
tan
out because
penuria
I believe
educacional de la que se ha
it's
hablado,
very
en la que creo
important
que antes era
considering the
impensable
difficult
que un alumno
situations we're
francés,
going
un
through.
alumno
It
alemán
in the
quisiera
past,
venir
it
aquí
was
a estudiar
unthinkable
música
for a
y hoy en día
French
es
or
una
German
realidad
student to want
en
to come to
centros como,
Spain
por
and
ejemplo,
study
como
music,
Musiquene.
whereas today it's a
Bueno, voy a
reality
intentar
for
no
schools
pasarme del
like
tiempo porque
Music.
creo que estamos
I will try to stick to the
bastante
allocated time
juiciosos
because I
y no quiero
understand
robar
we're
ni un
running a
minuto a
little
mis
bit late, and
compañeros.
I do not want to steal a single
Mi
minute
plan de
from my
estudios, como les decía
co-panel
antes,
members.
contempla
Our
una formación
curriculum
bastante importante y
involves a
completa.
very
Les doy un
broad
ejemplo. Un alumno, por
training.
ejemplo, de
For
flauta, que es un
instance,
instrumento de orquesta,
flute
pues
students,
estudia,
which is an
además,
orchestra
obviamente,
instrument,
de
will
su
also
instrumento principal, lo hace también,
take
hace repertorio con pianista,
subjects
repertorio orquestal, piano
of
complementario,
orchestra,
participa en
complementary
diversas
piano,
agrupaciones de música de conjunto,
has to work in several
de las cuales les voy a hablar
ensembles.
luego,
I will
y
mention those a
además
little bit
hace historia
later.
de la música,
And
filosofía y
also has to take
estética,
courses in
educación
music,
auditiva,
history,
armonía y
philosophy and
contrapunto,
aesthetics,
análisis,
harmony,
técnicas corporales,
analysis,
y luego,
body
además debe cursar
techniques,
un número de créditos al año
and
en
a
asignaturas
certain
optativas,
amount of
entre las
credits
cuales
in
hay
optional
muchas de muy
subjects,
diverso estilo, desde teatro, por
covering a very
ejemplo, para
wide
apoyar a los
range,
alumnos
going from
que
theater,
quieren desarrollar
which
luego su
thoroughly
trabajo de papel
prepares
como
students
científico de
that
cara
would
a la
like to
escena,
work, for instance, in the
técnica
opera
Alexander,
field,
todo tipo de
scene setup, languages, journalism, and music critique, audio techniques and audio recording. I believe the range is vast and has been one of our strong points from the beginning, thus opening our students a broader professional future. Allow me now to tell you about the orchestra studies program developed by Music NA since 2003. As I said, Music NA was created during the school year 01-02, and on that very year they launched the orchestra program for classical music students on one side with participation in different areas, and also for jazz students, which is an important section of our activities with the big band. As part of our curriculum, we also have an ensemble of woodwinds, a historical band, an instrumental workshop, a sinfonietta, a wind ensemble, and different instrument workshops for composition students, as well as lectures on orchestration works. And well, obviously, we have our symphony orchestra, which is the one I'm focusing on. All these groups, or most of them, work together during the school year that ends with a public concert in a regular city theater, part of our community, part of our area. The specific aspect of Music NA is that groups of this sort work in intensive work weeks. They don't work throughout the year in orchestra practice. They actually gather during specific weeks of the year. We call them the purple weeks, and they intensively work on a repertoire, usually with a guest conductor. And obviously, this enhances the quality of their work. I'm not sure if there are any other centers in Spain working with under this scheme with their own orchestras, and particularly with so many guest conductors as we have had. Conductors that sometimes work with many of you, like Pablo González, Luis Coller, Juan Jomena, Salvador Mas, Manolo Olivieso, sitting here, and so many others. And performances are done in regular theaters of the orchestra circuit, like the Cursal Auditorium or the Cultural Palace of Bilbao, etc. The working methodology, well, on one side, it's one curricular activity that students have to go through. In other words, they meet during those weeks, but they have already studied previously, and then they rehearse together and close the cycle with one or two concert performances. This year we had one of those concerts in November. Next week we will have the first Purple Week of this school year. During that event, we will also join the celebration of the 100 years of the Francisco Escudero, Maestro Francisco Escudero. It's his 100th anniversary, and the Symphony Orchestra of Music NA will play one of his symphonies under the conduction of Lulu Tamayo. The next Purple Week will be in February and the last one in May. As I said, these intensive work weeks during which we teach no classes whatsoever in the center are entirely devoted to preparing the orchestra for these concerts. And the meeting of ensembles like the woodwind ensemble and the metal wind ensemble involves only one work week a year. And the Sinfonietta, which is a chamber orchestra, has 2 weeks a year, and the Musicene Symphony Band 2 weeks, and 2 more for the big band, for the jazz students. In general terms, the smaller groups like the Sinfonietta and the wind ensembles, both of them, are made up by students from the junior courses, whereas the symphony orchestra is made up by 3rd and 4th year students. Well, obviously, sometimes we include students from all levels in the orchestra if it's a large work, because we don't have a lot of students. So if we need more musicians, we will integrate junior students into the concerts, because we cannot cover the entire sitting of the orchestra with only our senior students. So this is how our curriculum works in our learning center. There's also an interesting part of it, which is the instrument workshop. It's about performance and the preparation work made by composition students in our center. As part of it, of the program, future composers can ask and learn about the technical possibilities of each instrument in the orchestra, and then carry out their creation work once they're actively, truly familiar with the sound of each instrument. There's a further activity for composers, and these are orchestration lectures and recordings. Composition students submit their work so that the Musicane orchestra can work on those and with their conductor, and then they are recorded. And in the case of 4-year senior students, instead of submitting arrangements, they submit their own compositions. And the objective of this is providing the fullest possible training to our students, as similar as possible to their future career. And last, although perhaps Maestro Valdivieso is a more appropriate person to deal with this, we work with orchestra conduction students, which also participate in much of this work, and at the same time get prepared for their future work as conductors with a lot of practical experience. But like I said, Maestro Valdivieso will give you a better explanation than I could. Beyond this, well, when I started my presentation, I was saying that we're very grateful for, to be present in this kind of forum, because it is very important for a center like Musicene to have some outwards projection. We are always talking about making our orchestras known, or to overcome the challenge of growing a wider audience. Well, our challenge is training excellent professionals and helping them understand what their lives will be like in the future, giving them a glimpse of it while they're studying. In that sense, in the External Affairs Department of Musicene, we strive to provide our students with the possibility of tasting their possible future career live, outside the classroom. We want them to live the experience of a concert, to see the audience's response to the music. We want them to have the live experience of what it feels like. And at the same time, we want to advertise ourselves a little bit, too. Nothing like the kind of projects, social projects we heard about this morning, but at least we do want to give something back to society for their efforts in subsidizing a musical learning center. We're entirely dependent on the Basque federal government. We're a public foundation subsidized by the local government, and the only funds we get is that's a subsidy and students' fees. which are slightly similar to those of a public university. So we're trying to give something back, particularly at such harsh times. Give something back in exchange for their support. And even if we have to, well, even if obviously investments have to be made in education, we want this investment to bear fruit and be turned into someone society can use. And in that sense, Musicene is always trying to reach out to all sorts of institutions. So we can produce a concert for our students to go and play in some small town that hard to reach distant town, or in some regular theater. And we also reach out for hospitals like the Oncological Center of San Sebastian to multiply their musical possibilities. Well, not only in our region, but also outside. And along the same lines, we believe that it's fundamental for our students to take contact with their future audience. And at the same time, it's very positive for the general public. And there's something I must not forget. I need to speak about our international dimension. I believe that something was said yesterday that we're still lagging behind several other European countries, and that's not unlikely. And there's also this flight of performance that have to go abroad seeking a better professional lives. Well, many of those professionals were actually trained abroad, or many of our students were trained abroad and are coming back to Spain to give something back here as well. And the proof of that is that in Musicene, we have links with many other European learning centers, well, with many important centers from Germany, Austria, France, Italy, Norway, Poland, Portugal, Switzerland. Well, I will not list them one by one. The point is that when students want to go into an Erasmus exchange program, we have many more applications from European students that want to come to Musicene than Spanish students wanting to go abroad. And I believe that sort of proves things are not going so badly.
And last but not least, in our desire to build bridges and collaborate and establish partnerships, because as you heard, you have to keep going, you have to be innovative and enthusiastic and have shared projects. And I think now is the time to seek partners and collaborate as much as possible. Everyone who's in the wonderful world of music, to make sure everything keeps going and we can all contribute. And we'd always had a very close relationship with the Symphony Orchestra of Euskadi, which is actually pretty near. It's in the same city, just a few miles apart. And also administratively, we're closely connected because we are both funded by the Basque government. And we did collaborate in the past in specific projects, but it didn't really become something ongoing. We did do some joint concerts and shared instruments or lent instruments to one another, and a lot of our students do take part in the exams for collaborators in both orchestras, for instance. And so we started thinking that, on the one hand, the Euskadi Symphony Orchestra, as you saw this morning, is always thinking about new projects, and about moving forward and coming up with new ideas. And Musiquene, I think, has the same sort of attitude. And so we signed a preferred partnership agreement, which has this logo you see up there, Aula Jordá, also, which we think could be a very good example and a very interesting example, or at least we're very excited with this project. And it would be a way for all of us to help one another in these difficult times that we're all experiencing and that we've talked about so much these days. Basically, the partnership agreement we've signed has two or several aspects. First, Musiquene, we had, like everyone else, a problem with the budget because there's less and less funding available, but we did want to continue to provide excellent training for our students, and we found it impossible to offer master classes inviting the kind of quality soloists we wanted. And thanks to this agreement, some of the soloists who play with the symphony orchestra will come and teach a master class for free to our students at Musiquene. And of course, for us, that is a really interesting prospect. This morning, we've had 3 for oboe, clarinet, and violin. We hope that this agreement has just been signed last June. It's on its infancy, but we hope that in the future there will be more projects of this type. Also, our conductor students who we like to get real on-the-job training. We wanted them to work as assistant conductors with and to be taught by the conductor of the symphony orchestra, and also with visiting conductors and lending of instruments, which was something that we were doing as well, and facilities, certainly. And then the collaboration was part of a program of season tickets of the symphony orchestra for our students. In fact, there's a Mahler Sixth, which will be performed next May. And I think for them it will be quite wonderful, but to live and to experience the whole thing from the beginning.